Okay, so the Jays have the secret allocation fund, and it's for Juan Soto. And the insiders won't stop beating us over the head of the Jays are getting Juan Soto, or the Jays are in the mix for Juan Soto. John Heyman, who is genuinely like, he's just Scott Boras. Like, you want to know what Scott Boras thinks? Just go to John Heyman's Twitter account, scroll it, and that's what you get.
Scott Boras thinks Aaron Judge's name is Arson Judge. Must be.
Yeah, that's true. So anyways, the insiders won't quit it to the point where it's just you can't escape this. If you're a Blue Jays fan and you're at all plugged into social media, or even if you read any major publication that comes to baseball, you're going to see Blue Jays, Juan Soto linked.
Yeah, and I think we can all agree Jeff Passan isn't the mouthpiece for Scott Boras.
He's not. And so, do I believe the Jays are interested in giving Juan Soto a big bag of money? I do. I really do. But out of all of the free agents that we've seen in recent vintage, the idea of a free agent and his agent are using you for leverage, I would say applies to this more than any I can remember.
I guess it's hard for me to believe that he needs leverage.
I had a similar thought last night.
It's like I just recently sold a house. It was a nightmare. It was so terrifying. And then we
surprising because you're so smart. You would have thought that you would have just been able to handle it, no problem. But anyways, go on.
I was able to handle it. We got it done. That's for sure. Different than it being terrifying.
Yeah.
But yeah, we opened up the bidding, and like we got one offer, and we're like, we need one more offer. We got a second offer, and honestly, that made all the difference in the world. Once you have two, that's it. That's all you need. And one thing we know for sure is that the Yankees and Mets are going to do their darndest to land Juan Soto. What do you need the Blue Jays in there for? Like, what? We really think like that's the determining factor, unless they end up getting him, but like that they're going to bid above and beyond what the Yankees and Mets would have bid against each other?
Yeah, I think the idea there is that the Yankees are trying to be a little cheap and get him at a bit of a discounted rate going. You know this. There's a price for what you know.
Yeah, no, he seemed really interested in going back to where he knows.
I agree, but also that is the public position that you would take, right? So anyway, whatever. I would think if you were selling your house, if you're going to take this analogy a step further, that second offer, once you had the second one, if you would have had a third offer.
Oh, sure.
You could have got two of the other ones to start bidding against each other.
What if I knew like the two people bidding on my house were like real estate developers that are desperate, like they know that my house is primo real estate, which Juan Soto is, and there's two of the biggest land purchasers in the world.
I got to be honest, I actually think a lot of this is, if we're doing quick conspiracy corner of what we think is happening, to me, the read is actually more about how really the Yankees are cheap and that the Yankees are not what they used to be in terms of financial flexibility.
And that it's really Mets and Blue Jays.
And yes, exactly. And that the Yankees are looking at this and going, we might not be in if the price is that price. I don't know. Maybe that's an idiot take, but or they're slow rolling it and they're trying to pretend as though they're less interested. I don't know. Again, they're still linked to him by every account, but that's just my thing.
I don't know if I'm jumping ahead and you were planning on getting to
this.
Yes,
no, don't jump ahead because I'm trying to set up the segment, but we keep just going off on side tangents.
Okay, you don't want me to bring up the Blue Jays are the first team to meet with Juan Soto and what that could mean, and if Scott Boras is setting the agenda,
sure. Go ahead. So what do you think? No. Well, okay.
I think actually the Blue Jays going first would play into your conspiracy theory that he's like he needs them involved to drive up the bidding.
Yeah.
It's like we'll start the bidding with the team with the deepest pockets that has the most to prove.
Not only that, the most desperate. You could make the case that the Yankees coming off of a World Series appearance, despite all of us on the outside going, who are 90s and early 2000s babies going, that's the standard now is you make a World Series and you're celebrating it and you're going, oh, it's fine now. We don't need to get desperate we didn't get a taste of the winning and we got super embarrassed and it's one of the lowest moments actually in our franchise's history that inning.
Yeah, Greg Olson is making fun of Arson Judge.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's making fun of Arson Judge. Joe Kelly is just in his car dropping rap bars.
Tough for Joe Kelly, of all people.
So what? Let's not get off track here.
I told you I was going to do that.
My guess is that, they're trying to put the Blue Jays out there as the difference between Juan Soto getting the Shohei Otani money versus just what is an amazing contract in baseball is having a team that makes Steve Cohen have to go, enough already. I'm ending the bidding. You're at the auction and there's the one guy, $10 million, multiple millions over the top of what the last bid was to try to end it, to try to quell it. That is what I think that they're looking for there. That's just, again, I'd set this up. I'm just a dumb guy, not informed, just trying to read the tea leaves. So going back to the beginning, which is where we were trying to be all along.
Remind me.
We believe that the Blue Jays have this allocation fund for Juan Soto types. That's the special allocation fund. I've screwed this up. That's the special allocation fund. You and I are of the mind where they're meeting all these other free agents and they're talking to Max Fried and they're linked to all these and they're meeting with everybody and they're down at the GM meetings and a bunch of these GMs are circling around the Ben Nicholson Smith types and whispering to them, I think that these guys are liars. I think that these guys have more money than what they say they have, which has now created not the secret allocation fund, the special allocation fund, but now has actually become the secret allocation fund where there's potential that the Blue Jays, a team that really seemingly has one way out of the fire that they're in, which is to play checkbook baseball, but is only a little over $20 million when it comes to what their budget should be, that they might be a little bit more comfortable given a longer list of free agents to spend their money on. So you and I are both buyers of this potential theory.
Oh, 100%. And in fact, Shai Davidi basically alluded to it in a couple of articles ago.
Oh, wow. See, so now this is great conspiracy stuff where you're like, I've got the clipping from this. Yeah.
Well, he said like, hey,
there was a sighting in Idaho and near that. Yeah.
You cannot talk to Max Fried and Christian Walker or any of those guys if you only have $20 to $25 million left to spend. And especially if it's Fried, it's like,
that's all the money.
Would it be nice to have another starter? Yeah, but you factually just don't need one. You need an entire bullpen. You need 2 to 3 more bats. That you can't spend all of it on a Max Fried and build out a baseball team. It's just like not possible. So the only conclusion you can come to is that the special allocation fund also exists in the form of a secret allocation fund.
That's where I wanted to go. So that's it. This is the basis for Conspiracy Corner with the Jays.
It has to. It's the only solution you can come to if you're going to land a free agent of note. Why even bother talking to these guys if you don't have a secret allocation fund?
Okay. So this brings us to the rest of Jay's Conspiracy Corner. So I asked you to come up with, you reading the tea leaves, with something that you think is going to be happening this offseason or you think is in the works with this offseason. Because Juan Soto is no longer you can build a conspiracy off of Juan Soto.
Yeah, I have one.
Okay, but ultimately, this is what do you think the Blue Jays are up to when you put the tinfoil hat on and say, all right, all these rumors and buzz and murmurs, is this just a team that's trying to do its due diligence and give a public-facing, well, we did speak to everyone, so we didn't miss on anything, or is there something deeper?
Okay, I believe that the Blue Jays were obviously interested in Shohei Otani. Clearly, he went to go visit the minor league facility, the player development complex in Dunedin, and they gave their best offer. And obviously, there were other components outside of baseball that came along with landing Juan Soto. But ultimately, they knew that guy was going to the Dodgers, right? They knew it. They had to know it. Even the insiders, as much as the Blue Jays were in the mix and they thought about them as, being legitimate, nobody ever wavered about them being like the favorites over the Dodgers. I've never seen anything like what John Heyman wrote at the end where it's like, no, they could land the biggest fish. You never heard any of that talk around Shohei Otani. My conspiracy is that, they gave a good effort for Shohei Otani, but the bigger effort is for the guy that's younger and is actually, outside of the non-baseball stuff, a better fit for this Blue Jays team in Juan Soto, who's Dominican. One of his best buds is also on this team that you can sign to a long-term extension at the exact same time as you're landing the biggest free agent in the history of this organization. He plays a corner outfield spot, maybe not well, despite the fact that he was a Gold Glove nominee.
I would argue he plays it poorly, but yeah.
He's an actual Like, he's got a personality. Shohei Otani, like, not stepping in front of a microphone, like, ever during the regular season. He was loath to do it in the postseason. That Juan Soto is actually the guy they wanted from the get-go. We heard tons around him and the potential trade that the Blue Jays were going to consummate before they got flooded with the Otani stuff and distracted.
Before the trade actually happened, too, where they involved multiple pieces that the Jays flat out didn't even have.
But that Juan Soto all along was the number one target, and they just, because it fell into their lap and because he had more interest than they ever anticipated, were distracted by the Otani thing. That Soto has been the guy from the word go.
Okay, so to build off of this, if I was buying into your conspiracy theory, I would also point out that last year was essentially a dry run for these guys.
And this was the Stamkos, like, get the Canadian Tire guy out of here. That obviously didn't work.
Yeah, we've improved the way that we approach this.
Yes.
We've figured out some of the mistakes that we made the year prior, primarily thinking that our spring complex was the real motivator, that it was, man, how could this guy pass up training here? It's so nice. Look at the pictures of it. We all looked at the pictures.
Yeah.
We did. We all looked at the pictures.
Really good pictures.
But yeah, if you were to buy into that conspiracy, yours is so much sexier than mine. I just got to say that you went really big with it, and I'm proud of you for that.
Thank you.
I went a little bit more conservative with mine. If you were doing that, you would say they've already got all their ducks in a row in terms of how to pitch someone like this, the kind of money that it's going to take for somebody like this, that all of the things that happened a year prior are helping them in this pursuit. My only pushback in terms of that being the case is what I say to most conspiracies. For something like that, it requires a lot of secret keeping. And so why didn't we hear out of more leaks that they were really disappointed they didn't land? Like, if you really wanted them, I guess you didn't really have the prospects, so that would lead to it.
Yes.
But if he was really the primary target, why wouldn't it have come out at one point that this was kind of the case? Why wasn't it a little bit earlier that they were in on?
Because they were in, right? Like we had heard when he was discussed in trade that they were involved in it, and then just the Otani thing just took everything. Like, and the Soto trade happened before Otani signs with the Dodgers. It just. They got distracted. They were like, we never thought we'd get this far. We never thought we'd be the second Vegas favorites to land Shohei Otani, who is a great player. And I remember making the argument at the time that Juan Soto was a better fit for the Blue Jays because of the age thing, because of the ability to play the field.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
There's always been a strong case
I also
for that.
didn't know that Shohei Otani was going to go out and steal almost 60 bases. Like, that's pretty ridiculous. And yeah, his star power is obviously greater than Juan Soto. It's just, they're like, they just got distracted, okay? And who can blame them for being distracted? Who can blame me for being the first to track that flight early in the morning on a Friday? And they just got swallowed up by a thing that was bigger than them, but this was always the plan. Juan Soto was the guy. Juan Soto, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. going back-to-back, belly-to-belly. Ever since they understood it was a possibility. He was going to finish his career in San Diego, and he was going to free agency, and it was just going to come down to money, and he's just a mercenary, and they already recultivated that relationship with Scott Boras, starting with Hyun-Jin Ryu, that they know this was the ultimate endpoint for them, and it was with them doing their darndest for Juan Soto. It just happened that they got all twisted and mixed up into the Otani thing. This is the ultimate destination they always envisioned.
Okay. I like that one. It's a good one. I have to admit, as a dumb guy, that I have...
You would like to subscribe to my newsletter?
Yeah, I would. Just to keep an eye on it. Just to keep... I'm not gonna pour over it. But I'll skim that. I'll skim that newsletter.
My Reddit page.
Yeah, I'll skim that. I'll skim it. That's what I'll do. So I like it, and I hate to admit that as much as I'm really not. I'm not getting excited for Juan Soto. I think you mentioned this last week that you got to see him in the lineup.
Me neither.
You got to see him in the dugout, and he's going to come out. And even then, until he swings the bat for the Jays. I almost expect it to be like WWE where he walks out and then he just like rips off the jersey. He's like, oh my God, he's a Yankee.
I will say, like, I've gone on to Amazon and I've priced out clown makeup.
Yeah.
Like,
okay. So yeah, you've done it. All right. So that's fair. That's fair and good for you. But I will admit that part of me actually, yeah, there's a small part of me that's worried about making fun of the Juan Soto thing to the point where
you're like, on the fence. You're a fence sitter.
No, but no. I'm not a fence sitter. I'm saying that I don't believe it at all. I just do not think he's coming here. I have a hard time believing that he's going to leave that market and that the Blue Jays are going to outbid Steve Cohen. Those are the two things for me that
is the part that I can't understand.
That's it. That's what I'm saying.
As much as Rogers
when push comes
ultimately
to shove,
has more money, but it's like they're beholden to people that Steve Cohen's not.
And if you're trying to point to George Springer as an example of when it happened, it was George Springer.
Right.
It was not only George Springer. They went out and actually got the right guy in Lindor.
Yeah.
The Jays got the wrong one, but also Toronto gave him that extra year, and that was the thing where they went, okay, this is
because everybody kind of envisioned the George Springer aging curve happening.
Exactly. With Juan Soto, there really isn't a term that makes you feel uncomfortable given his age and his pedigree and where he's at in his career, and so it's just that you can't compare the two. Yeah, you can't. To me, you cannot compare the two when it comes to these two teams having a free agent
and the stage in their development too. Like the Mets just made this incredible postseason run. They showed proof of concept.
Exactly. There's just that. Yeah. Anyway, I'm completely out on the idea that these guys are getting them. I think that I'm completely in on the idea that they are being used. But there is a small part of me that's afraid that if they were to sign Juan Soto, that some of the joy would be sapped out of it for me because I'd be looking like a different kind of clown. I was like, I never even believed a little. Is that the thing? Anyway, whatever. I'm moving on to mine. So you've seen all the reports of the Jays and Max Fried. God, they love Max Fried.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody.
Who wouldn't?
Everybody's linking him to old Max Fried.
Mm-hmm.
And God, wouldn't it be so nice to take him from where he's from, too?
I think I know where this is going.
No, I'm just saying that would be an added feather in the cap, no?
Yeah. I mean, sticking it to AA?
Yeah. Especially given that, there's a recent track record of a guy that AA probably should have signed, and then he goes and wins a World Series as the MVP with a different NL franchise.
Second, Matt Olson did feel like he was going to do the exact same thing, except
cheaper. He did, but he didn't.
No, he didn't.
So here's the thing about that is he didn't. And wouldn't you say that Freddie Freeman amongst Atlanta Braves fans, that they're looking at it going, why wasn't this guy on our team for life? Like out of all the guys to give the money to, it's the unanimously popular player who has aged gracefully and who just had one of the most memorable World Series we've ever had. Kind of a down moment for old Alex Anthopoulos. And what do these guys want to do? They want to kick him while he's down. So they go over and they say, hey, this isn't enough of a story in Atlanta right now. But what if they start losing more guys they really love? So what if we get involved in the Max Fried situation to stick it to this guy and say, hey, you guys all wanted Mr. has won a World Series since he left? Like, of course, that's what you like. But look at this guy. He's losing free agents left, right, and center. We're stealing guys from him. So it will be an added feather to the cap. But that's just a small part of the conspiracy. The main meat of the conspiracy is this. The Jays do only have $20 to $25 million to play with, depending on guys that they get rid of and shed easily.
Yeah.
Do you know where the Jays finished in Fangraphs were with their pitching last year? Overall?
Well, I know. So
28th. Anyway, we don't need to do this.
Don't ask me the question.
Well, as soon as you went overall, like you started to put the little pieces together.
I was going to take 10 seconds.
No. I saw it. It was going to be way too long.
Okay.
They finished 28th in Fangraphs war, and a lot of that is the bullpen, right? You would look at that and say, oh, it's bullpen. It's bullpen.
Starters
the worst
great
bullpen.
Either, though.
Correctamundo. The starters in Fangraphs war were out of the top 15. They were 17th. So you look at that and you go, okay, you can't even say this is a strength anymore. And by the way, you were tied with Tampa Bay in Fangraphs war. They had everyone hurt, and they still cobbled together a starting rotation that your big budget starting rotation couldn't match. That was with the breakout of Bowden Francis, right? All those incredible Bowden Francis starts buoyed that. They lifted that starting pitching war. So here's my thought. The Max Fried thing is very real. That the starting pitching thing is very real. That these guys have actually prioritized starting pitching, that they've gone, you know what? We actually feel as though the wins above replacement on the bats are what we've said basically the last couple of years, that we can find these guys, even though they, haven't. even though it's like, Belt is fine. But It was just fine, right? This is a team that doesn't hit for power, and I've got Trevor May coming up later in the show today. I already talked to him. I taped the interview, and he goes over what it's like to pitch to a lineup like the Blue Jays in their lineup specifically, and here's what I'll tell you. He's like, it's not... He doesn't seem to be overly impressed by the fact that they don't strike out a ton, right? Yeah. He's like, oh, yeah, that's nice. I don't really get nervous in a lot of moments. They're not going to make you sweat. My thought is that they're looking at the bats and they're saying, we'll find a way to cobble this together. Yeah, maybe Juan Soto. It's an amazing pipe dream. It obviously fixes a lot of this. But ultimately, we are going to lean on some of the idea that Bo will come back and some of the idea that Vladdy is this for an entire season and some of the, like, what we saw with second half Kirk versus first half Kirk. Get a couple of bats, maybe make a little trade, and we can shore this up. But where we can really hit is the starting pitching free agent market. And what have they been good at?
Do what you know.
Do what you know. What they've been good at is signing starting pitchers. And if they've identified Max Fried or another starting pitcher as the guy in free agency, that they're going to do that. The problem is they don't have the money because you're right. They factually need to build out a bullpen. They can go get lottery tickets, whatever, but getting a Max Fried disqualifies you from that. So there's a couple of things here. One is that you need the money. Two is that you really need to improve your starting pitching. And you've got a lot of guys that are now here and pitching for you. So my conspiracy corner is that the Jays are actively trying to trade Chris Bassitt, that they want to get off that money and that they want to ship him somewhere, and that one of these organizations that desperately needs depth, the Blue Jays will ship out that $21 million that's owed to this guy, maybe even eat a little bit of it to try to soften the blow. But ultimately, that this is a money in, money out situation where they're looking at adding a front-end starter who can actually be the new ace, that can actually anchor this staff, and that Chris Bassitt is not going to be a Toronto Blue Jay in 2025. That's the tinfoil hat.
Yeah, I would have gone because Bassitt, I think he has value, but not at $20+ million. And everything I've heard is that you have to eat it. I thought the guy you were going to go to is Gausman, who has the extra year, and he's also making $20+ million.
I think he's too valuable to them. I think that if you're trying to compete, you have to try to keep Kevin Gausman, and that Bassitt represents something that you might now have a bit of a redundancy in that you're, one, trying to get out of this before it gets bad, because there were some indicators that Chris Bassitt,
same with Gausman, though.
Yes, there were with Gausman, but Gausman still had higher highs, and not only that, he did come into the season hurt. He was trying to work on a new pitch. There's some things.
His numbers at the end of the year were surprisingly a lot better than people remember.
That's what I'm saying. To me, Gausman is too valuable for them to move off of, and if you're moving Gausman out, and then he goes pitches amazing somewhere, and then you've brought in Max Fried, what's the difference between those two? Like, all you've done is extend a couple of extra years of Max Fried? No, that one makes no sense to me. The only one that makes sense is Chris Bassitt, that you're moving off this money, that there's a team out there that covets what he does because, one, good clubhouse guy, two, competitive dude who will go out there and work his ass off, three, it looks like now you can rely on him to get to those innings, and four, if you're a team that's looking to like really improve their regular season record, that's trying to get back in the playoffs, like I'm thinking about a team like the Giants, let's say. Okay? You know, you want to add depth. You want to add multiple guys. You probably want to add a free agent. But this is someone that the Jays will probably tell you, hey, you can buy extremely low here. You basically don't have to give us much, and you just get what's a one-year starting pitcher to someone? That still has value. So move the money out on Chris Bassitt and improve your starting pitching by going money in, money out, and bringing in a Max Fried.
Yeah, I like it. Everything I've been led to believe is that $22 million for Chris Bassitt is way too much. And it is. Like, if you're signing a guy to a one-year deal and you thought you'd get, like, league average ERA from him, that's too much. But that if in your scenario, right, like Max Fried is, making north of $30 million? Like, I
have a list from Kylie McDaniel, who does pretty damn good work with this stuff, and he has Max Fried projected at just over $29 million. So yeah, pretty much.
$30-ish million. So and to do the other things that you still need to do, you still need to build a bullpen, you still need to add bats, you still need to do a lot of things. And if you're not freeing up all of the $20 million of Chris Bassitt, you're not doing that. And it feels like, unless you're attaching an asset to it, like the Pirates did to get off of Francisco Liriano, that I don't know if anybody's buying all of the $22 million of Chris Bassitt. I like where your head's at. That's why I thought Gausman made sense, because you can convince somebody, and I think rightly so, that his value.
It's a lateral move. It's like,
I don't
not
disagree,
necessarily, but it's too lateral. You need
unless
to do
you think
something.
He's about to fall off a cliff.
No, you need to do something. Yeah, for sure, but I don't think they do. There's
and
way,
they shouldn't.
Exactly. I don't think that they think that, and you need to make something that is actually going to make you feel like you've dramatically improved the club. And upgrading from Chris Bassitt, who now might be a number 5 innings eater guy, where we're looking at him and doing the R.A. Dickey thing where you go, we can't say it's bad because he pitches. And you go, but is it good? And then you say, no. You have to make something that is an actual splashier move. I'm just thinking the market for Bassitt, you're right. It doesn't seem to our eye that it would be something, but I'm guessing that there would be teams out there.
I like Chris Bassitt a lot,
That's what I'm
too.
saying. I don't think it's as low as what you think it is. Like if Chris Bassitt hits free agency today, he's not getting anywhere in the ballpark of that. Like he's not getting 12 million. He's not getting 13. Like Jaime Garcia
that's half of what he's making, though.
But I'm just saying that that's what Jaime Garcia got years ago for a 1-year deal with less evidence. That Chris Bassitt is probably getting like 16, 17 million still.
The thing is, he's about to
on a 1-year deal too. You got to think that this is a 1-year deal. You're not pot committed for a bunch.
But he's about to be 36 in February.
So what?
And he's coming off a season. Again, I hate doing this.
No, you don't. You're trying. This is actually what you do. Is like your favorite thing to do is be like.
But I'm the Chris Bassitt defender. I feel like in our text, I'm always the Chris Bassitt defender.
Well, that's because I happen to wager on games, and sometimes Bassitt. The Jays were such a lock for unders because they couldn't hit any home runs, and every once in a while Bassitt would go out there, and I'd go, "Hey man, just be cool," and he would go, "No."
Yeah, so a 36-year-old who has like a slightly below average ERA. His ERA plus is 97, right? At 36, I know he's only 2 seasons removed from being a top 10 American League Cy Young Award vote getter, but it makes sense that a 36-year-old would start to see signs of diminishing.
I have Robert Murray on tomorrow. We'll settle this with him in terms of the value. I think there's more than you're saying. Not more in the sense of you're getting back assets.
Like I think he's a neutral asset at best at $22 million.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think you're getting anything back other than really kind of dumping him, but that teams would absolutely be willing to take him on at that money for 1 year of Chris Bassitt, who could end up giving you a sub-4 ERA, and you wouldn't look at that and go, wow, that's insane that happened. Like you could end up getting close to 200 innings from this guy of around 4 ERA. Good depth for your starting pitching. Like he makes a lot of sense for a lot of teams. He just doesn't make as much sense now for this team, especially given the emergence of Bowden Francis and the idea that, hey, you might be able to get actually a lot more out of that guy in terms of being the innings dude who is, I don't know. I don't think he's going to be the ace of the staff. I don't think he's going to be I think he'll probably regress to a little bit closer to what his stuff indicates, but that you'll get by with him as a number 4 starter.
And I think like to add on to your conspiracy theory that, it seems obvious this team needs an upgrade in home runs, and they do, but like that's hard. And it's easier to build. You know what? You guys think we're going to zig? We're continuing to zag. Yeah. We're zagging, pitching and defense. That's the thing that we're closest and easiest to do.
Yes,
to try and win as many games 2-1, 3-2.
It fits philosophically.
Yep.
So it fits with what they've done in the past. It fits with what they've been trying to do moving forward. And Max Fried, just like I buy it. I really buy the idea that they're really, really heavily pursuing him. They just need to make money work. And when I look at the roster, and I'm like, where are they going to pull money from? I don't think they can get off the George Springer money.
No, that one is you definitely got to.
That's what I'm saying. So where else is the money being pulled from?
Yeah.
Like who's the other guy? If you remove Barrios or you remove Kevin Gossman, it's lateral. Yeah. So it has to come from somewhere, but it's got to come from somewhere where you're going to. The only guy is Chris Bassitt, and so I feel like maybe they already have some kind of a potential Chris Bassitt trade on the table, or that they've already fleshed out the value, and that's why they're so aggressive with these guys.
It is weird though that we never at the deadline, every indication, I know I thought about that being a move that made sense with a guy with only 1 more year of control being dangled at the deadline. Of course, but that's the whole point, is that you're not going to move him out before you realize, what you can get back. I mean, they knew Max Fried was a free agent then. Yeah, they knew he was a free agent, but I'm saying that now they've met with them and now they've figured out what the money looks like. Yeah. Now they've gotten a realistic picture of what the actual thing is going to be. What was why am I blanking on this guy's name? The outfielder for the Mets that they struck out on. Oh, the center fielder. Now you're doing the same thing. Nimmo, Brandon Nimmo. Anyways, when they went into the Nimmo thing, it felt as though they were completely blown away by what the guy actually went for. Right? Rightly so. They went, what? Yeah. We were planning on this money, and then you ended up commanding that money. So Bassitt, it always made sense to hold on to him because he is a starting pitcher that
is going to give you innings, who's under control, and why move him until you figured out what you actually have.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it. Is make the move first and then get Chris Bassitt. Anyways, do you have any other conspiracies?
I've got one.
You got one more? Okay,
yeah. This is galaxy brain stuff.
Okay, good. That's my favorite kind.
Okay. Blue Jays front office is playing possum because they want to set the bar so low, like so impossibly low. You thought it was low, finishing dead last in the American League East. They're going to set it so low with Ross Atkins talking about power being a low-hanging fruit and every indication that they only have $20 to $25 million to spend.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of the strategy going into this offseason. That they were last offseason was a disaster because they ended up, fixing an offense by bringing back Kevin Kiermaier, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, and Justin Turner. But it was also a disaster because they lost the PR war in a big way because the expectations were set so high, not just with Otani, but because Jeff Passan quite literally wrote, if it's not Otani, they're doing something big. And probably because
splash.
of the Otani.
They're making a splash, They
didn't do any of that. They learned from that mistake. And so much of what you've heard from them or the reports that you've seen is because they want to set the bar as low as possible.
Here's the problem. If that was the case, then you wouldn't have Atkins and Shapiro both going out there constantly saying the goal is to win, the goal is to win, the goal is to win. You would say everything's on the table. We haven't charted out the path yet because you want to maintain people to believe that you could take a step back to take a step forward. And here's the other part of the problem. Every day we see their name next to Juan Soto.
Yeah, I mean,
it's hard to keep the expectations. It's hard to keep the expectations low when they've also had those same reporters go, "There's a special allocation fund for Juan Soto."
The problem is you actually can't land Juan Soto unless you take a meeting with him. So.
I do agree, though, that in the era of everybody caring more and paying more for PR, right? I've mentioned this before, but there's more people graduating from PR schools now than there are from journalism schools. Yes. Dude, no, journalists compared to PR now, it's not it's not a winning battle for people who cover things. The journalists are getting smaller and smaller, and I would argue that the climate right now, a lot of the journalists across all different types of media are becoming a lot more PR-y.
Yeah.
There's a lot of PR media out there.
Sure.
You don't have to, you can close your eyes, swing and throw a rock. Yeah. You're going to hit somebody who's in the PR media work. It would behoove them, and I think it does behoove them to try and tamp down. So, I don't completely disagree with your theory. But
you're saying there's an extreme version of it that they're not doing that they could have done.
Yeah,
but also, and I guess you would tell ownership that this was your plan. But imagine you were Edward Rogers and you saw your president who only has one more year left on his deal and has been not an abject failure, but pretty big failure. Just finished dead last. They have one of the highest payrolls in the franchise's history. He's like, I think we might just blow it up because we might stink too much. You'd be like, oh, I think you're fired.
Yeah.
Actually.
Hey, how many new doors did you build in that stadium? Do you usually get out? Which exit do you want to use? I'm with that. Yeah. So like I said, I buy some of it, but I do think that they're still trying to generate.
Listen, it's not the headline on my newsletter. Okay, it's like you have to get into the pamphlet. It's like now that I've got you with my lead item.
I'm already subscribed. All right. Anyways, by the way, subscribe to this podcast, leave 5 stars, do all those things, share it, do all the things that helps the show. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at JD Bunkis at I always forget what yours is.
Sportsnet Ben.
Sportsnet Ben. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So quick break. I want to come back and. I got a whole bunch of things, but I think I'm going to go with this. When tanking rules. That's next.